the Windrush Project is where we've been like filming different people from the Windrush generation in Chapeltown. We got the opportunity to go to Chapeltown and actually film in person, which is because we've had most of our course in the pandemic. It was so nice to actually film with people and get the opportunity to have that like bounce off interview kind of thing where you can actually react from how someone's talking, which you just can't do over Zoom. So it was so nice, and I think it's obviously a really important story that needs to be told, in a very Leeds specific story. Outside of London, I think it's maybe one of the biggest sort of Caribbean or Windrush populations, and it's so great to get that really local, really like interesting story that we could tell. And yeah, I had a really enjoyable time. Got to spend 2 days with people like bouncing all over the city and meeting a really diverse bunch of people.
As like a historian, as a history student, honestly, one of the best things I've probably done in years. Like genuinely having and I think that's one of the things I wouldn't have had this opportunity without being here. And I think it just goes to show that there's the opportunity from the university. It might be something else in the future, but the fact that there's kind of, I guess, they have the position to be able to be approached to do things like this. It's been absolutely amazing to speak to people who have such great stories to tell, and also to be doing that with, like people who genuinely at this point like are my friends. And I think that's just like incredible. I've loved it, and I think a lot of that is again the environment.
I think it's been really beneficial because it kind of puts you in like an industry scenario where you might get sent out somewhere like that to film and make projects and things like that, and you probably wouldn't get the same experience just interviewing individual people. Like we're actually working on an exhibition that will be being used in like the real world. So yeah, that's been a really good experience.
I've really enjoyed actually having it's very difficult to sort of have something set up, particularly in these sort of times. That's largely thanks again to the amazing tutors, Catherine and Lizzie, sort of trying to set those things up for us. And I think it's been a really good experience to be able to get out, meet and talk to people in person rather than having to do it over Zoom. And of course the Windrush generation is such sort of an important part in our history and our culture. And being able to meet people from that generation or descendants from that generation who we perhaps wouldn't have known about or wouldn't have contacted or spoken to before, and really listening to their sort of stories and their side of the stories and their family stories has been, really both really interesting and very sort of powerful, particularly with today's society.
It's just been a really interesting experience, hearing people's stories. And there's just been so many different people, and without doing this we would have never got to talk to them and hear like all their really interesting stories.
I think a lot of the sort of projects we've done so far up to this point have been quite individual, so it was really nice to be able to work in a team, to bounce ideas off people, and also to sort of apply skills in a different way with a sort of end goal in sight that wasn't necessarily an assessment. And yeah, I think the collaborative project also meant that it was more enjoyable because there was less to think about, but then it was also cool to see how other people worked and sort of how I could then apply that in the future.